6 of the Standard newspaper, and the CS is telling the young people, behave or you'll bury us. That is a strong warning that the CS gave to the country, especially to the young people. And even after his statement, the saddest thing and the most intriguing thing is that so many people decided to troll the CS on social media. Some saying, is it that you're remembering the youth right now because of COVID-19? But when it came to appointments in senior government positions, the young people have not been appointed. Why can't you go back to the old people that you appointed so that you can give them this rallying call? But it is important that as Kenyans, this is not a time to portion blame on who is to take the blame at the end of the day. It is a time that we need to work as a country. And that is why the CS, let me just quote what he said. Youth are the biggest population in the country. They have the energy and they are largely mobile. They're carriers of the disease and can take it to their parents. Let them unleash their energy in fighting this disease. Kagwe reminded them that they're the ones who bear the biggest burden of a failed economy, face their children with messages of unemployment, and crumble on the weight of older people who will be dying in large numbers. This statement also came at a time when we're seeing young people travel to upcountry in the name of they're better safe in upcountry because coronavirus has not been reported in upcountry. Sadly, not knowing even what the CS said, that the older generation, our great-grandparents, our grandparents, are so vulnerable during this time of COVID-19, and especially our older people in the society who have underlying medical issues. They are the people who will be, who will be affected so badly with coronavirus. And that is why the CS is urging young people to actually stop this disease. Let's ensure that the curve is flat. And the CS statement also comes at a time when one of the biggest, if I may say, restaurants in the country, actually in Machakos County, was closed because several young people were found there having a meeting. Yet the government talked about stopping large gathering. That led also to the closure of the hotel. The statement of the CS yesterday also came at a time when it is reported that about 6,000 young people, sadly, were planning to have a gathering here in Nairobi. Yet the government is still talking about keeping that distance. And the last story that I want us to have a look at the Standard newspaper before I cross over to the Nation newspaper. It is about faith or income. Page 10, talking about how clerics made the spread of deadly virus more vicious. And this is in connection with the clergy who traveled into the country from Rome and gave some spiritual, if I may say, services, lack of a better word, to residents in Siaya County, and the fear that so many people might have contracted that disease because of the spiritual interaction that they were having with the clergy. And it is a report that the government is keenly following up on so that to ensure that people probably came into contact with a priest are contacted by the government. And page 13, finally, why Ndingi Mwananzeki won't get a well-deserved send-off. You all know why. Because of COVID-19. Very few people will be expected in this ceremony when we are saying bye-bye to the late Archbishop Emeritus Ndingi Mwananzeki. To the Nation newspaper, before I bring it to a wrap when it comes to newspaper review, what I talked about earlier on, the front page talking about tracking the virus rebels. We still have rebels when you're talking about fighting COVID-19 in the country. And tracking the virus rebels, here we're talking about mobile phone tracking stats. Immediately, one once is identified as a potential carrier of the virus. And if you're identified as a potential carrier of the virus, it means your privacy when it comes to the use of your mobile phone will become a thing of the past. The government will actually have to trace you using your mobile phone. And special team drawn from various security agencies working in collaboration with the Ministry of Health and Interior is aiding the coordination effort for a military installation on the outskirts of Nairobi. Talking about the tracking the virus rebels, let me bring it into connection with what the CS talked about. The reason as to why he said that those people who are in mandatory quarantine have been given another extension of 14 days to be enforced quarantine. The reason being that even as people were put on mandatory quarantine, especially those people who jetted into the country, some of them went against the rules that were put in place by the government and instead decided to interact, have some party within the premises of the forced mandatory quarantine. And so the CS say that it is sad that this has to be done because some of the people who turned positive after their test results were taken for testing, and some of them actually who turned positive interacted with other people who are still within that forced quarantine. And so that is why they decided that everyone who interacted with some of these people in that forced quarantine premises have to undergo again through that 14 days of mandatory quarantine so that they can know whether they contracted the virus or not. But of concern to these people who are in forced quarantine is that who will pay for their expenses, because they're the ones who are paying for the hotels they're living in, the schools that they're living in, they're taking care of some of their necessities. So the CS said that the government might chip in, in terms of trying to sort them out financially. However, this is based on person to person in terms of the financial stability. So that is the reason as to why we are talking about this morning tracking the virus, the virus rebuilds. On Friday, CAS for Health gave a report of a death of one of the victims of COVID-19. And the saddest thing is that COVID-19 does not discriminate. It affects anyone of any age group. And a 6-year-old boy may have exposed many to the virus. That is what doctors are saying, because when nurses were attending, medics, the professionals, not only nurses, but the medical professionals who were attending to this boy, the 6-year-old boy, did not know that the boy actually died out of COVID-19 and also because of other health underlying situations, issues. And so the CS says that so many people might have been exposed to the virus, and that is why they're taking a track record and getting in contact, talking to people who might have handled this boy, because the government only got to know that the boy had coronavirus after tests were done, after he died. And so that is why health workers say that the pediatric department at the hospital is actually considered low risk for COVID-19, and they're therefore not given any protective gear. And still on page 2 of the Nation newspaper, finally, Kagwe says that 4 more have tested positive, taking the number to 126. So, at least the number is not, yesterday when the number was being reported of those who have been infected, it didn't go higher than that. And finally, as we wrap up, Nation newspaper, a review inside the plot to kick out Kirinyaga Governor, embattled Kirinyaga Governor Anne Waiguru. The MCAs say that the reason as to why they want to impeach the governor of Kirinyaga is because of abuse of office. They actually claim that the governor is allegedly giving contracts to people who he has, a close relationship with, something that the governor has actually denied, as saying that when it comes to issues of tender, it is done in a transparent way. And so the thing is that with backing from Jubilee Party, Kirinyaga Governor Anne Waiguru is fighting to save her political career and accuses political forces of working to remove her from office. She fought many battles before, but the storm in Kirinyaga is gathering peril. And if you are in her camp, by the hour. Now, the party might be on her side, but that is not enough. And yesterday, actually on Friday, we saw a letter that was written by Jubilee Party talking about the impeachment motion against Anne Waiguru. We've seen several changes have been made when it comes to the leadership of the county assembly, and basically some MCs were saying that those changes were touching on people who are fighting the county governor. So get a hold of the Standard newspaper to get more of the stories that are making the headlines. I've also given you what is making the headlines when it comes to the Nation newspaper, and also Catholics to mark Palm Sunday away from churches because of COVID-19. Things are being done differently. People had booked hotels, destinations to celebrate Easter. But COVID-19 will make you stay indoors. We also expect a press briefing from the government today, because they have a weekly, or rather daily, press briefing when it comes to COVID-19. Allow me to take a short break here on a KTN Weekend Express, but I'll be right back with more news making the headlines, and also talking about an artist and what the artists are also doing. You know, the sort of spiritual encouragement they are giving to people. And I'd really want to introduce my guest this morning. I want you to keep it KTN Weekend Express so that you can be able to know about the award-winning artists that I have in studio this morning.